0-2 pitch, swing and a miss, struck him out. The Philadelphia Phillies are 2008 World Champions of baseball. And the Sixers win it! Wow!
Oh man, Embiid just posterized Russell Westbrook. You love the Philadelphia Eagles? Let me get a hell yeah!
What is up, everybody? What's going on? Welcome to Party on Broad. Today we have a special show, special guest. We're going to be breaking down the top 5 fits for the Philadelphia Eagles at number 12. What can I say, guys? Christmas Day is getting near, guys. 23 days, 23 hours, 26 minutes, and 53 seconds. Joining us is my man, Shane. You know him on Twitter at @halfandhalf_TPL. What is up, Shane?
Not much. My first day of giving state tests was today. We were giving high school history tests, and so I naturally started thinking about our esteemed podcast guest for tonight. So I'm ready to go.
Let's do this. All right, let's get the show started. We've got an amazing guest for you guys today. One of the best Twitter follows, one of the biggest football nerds, period. My man is a writer for Touchdown Wire. He's got one of the best football breakdown YouTube channels there is. If you want to learn the actual ins and outs and you're not following this guy, you're doing it wrong. Returning for the second time is my man, Mark Schofield. Give him a follow at Mark Schofield on Twitter. What is up, Mark?
What's going on, guys? Nice to be back here. And we got a little bit of news today with the Sam Darnold trade. So that may potentially shake out what the Eagles can do at 12 because we all expected Carolina would be in the quarterback market. Now they might not be. Maybe a team comes up and trades up to get a quarterback there. But, you know, that might sort of impact what the Eagles will be available, will have available at the pick in the 12 spot. But from my understanding, we're going to do my top 5 picks, my top 5 fits for the Eagles at 12.
Yep.
I do want to set out some ground rules, though. And I was saying this before we hit record. I'm taking quarterbacks and I'm putting them to the side. Justin Fields, Zach Wilson, all those guys. I'm not going to dive into quarterbacks. I'm also taking Kyle Pitts and Jamar Chase and putting those guys to the side. When I initially put together my top 5, those were 1 and 2 were Pitts and Chase. But I realized we probably should have wasted too much time talking about them because if they're available at 12, something happened. It's like a Larry Tunsil gas mask situation if one of those guys is available at 12. So we're going to do 5 to 1. How do you want me to do it? You want me to just roll into number 5 here?
I say let's roll. Let's go. Number 5. Let's go.
Number 5, and this was probably going to be a letdown, but I do think it's a fit. I don't think he'd be the pick, but it wouldn't surprise because it is a need. But that's Penn State linebacker Micah Parsons. Okay. When I started studying him back in 2019, I actually pulled up my notes here. Very athletic, true sideline to sideline player, like somebody that can get, chase plays down from the backside, that can fill stuff and fit against the run front side. He's athletic enough in coverage that he can fit the mold of a 3-down linebacker in today's National Football League. You don't have to take him off the field on 3rd downs. He's somebody that can play in sub packages, can play in base packages, can be athletic, can play in space. Linebackers in need for the Philadelphia Eagles. I don't think anybody will deny that. The question becomes, do you draft an off-ball linebacker at 12, like in today's NFL? Even though he can do all the things you need him to do, even though he's a 3-down player, if you're going to go defense, you probably go corner, or in today's NFL, maybe not the Eagles, but in today's NFL, you probably go edge before you go off-ball linebacker. But he's a top 5 talent. He's a top 5 talent. He might be there at 12. They could take advantage of the value if he does slide. I think he would fit. But I also think that there are linebackers, say Jabril Cox on day 2, some other guys on day 2 that you could address the linebacker position and get value there and go in a different direction at 12. But if he's there, he's a fit.
If Jim Schwartz was here still, this would be like a what? No, but you've got Jonathan Gannon. It'll be interesting to see with him as the new defensive coordinator what the Eagles will be looking at and investing at on defense in this draft. But having a 3-down linebacker seems to be a growing trend in the NFL. Nate Gary, we're not going to get into that. He was obviously one of the worst football players I personally have ever watched. Not all his fault, but my goodness. The problem is Howie Roseman is still here. And you look at that track record, I don't know, man, but I'm okay with it with maybe like a slight trade down.
Yeah, I mean, that's certainly an option. Like, if you slide back a couple of spots, say there's a quarterback available at 12 and New England wants to come up and get him. You slide back to 15, draft Micah Parsons at 15. Like, I think that's something you can live with. Pick up an additional, that third rounder of New England's at 96, maybe a future third or something as well. I don't think you're going to get a first rounder, but maybe, who knows? But yeah, it's the value of an off-ball linebacker. Like off-ball linebackers, interior defensive tackles, generally speaking, those guys are slotted. Even tremendously talented players like Micah Parsons. I think he can do it all. I think he's like the modern NFL linebacker. But when you're looking at guys in this class, you've got the Kentucky kid Davis that's starting to come up boards. I mentioned Cox, the McGrone, the Michigan linebacker. He's probably a day 2 guy, but he's also getting some buzz. And so you could probably address linebacker later in the draft, but there are other positions that might thin out sooner than linebacker does that you might want to address at 12 or even at 15 if you do trade down.
Yeah, Mika Parsons seems like that coverage linebacker that the Eagles so desperately need. I love the way this guy's strong in zone coverage. He can blitz on passing downs. He's got good size. Shane, what's your take on Mika Parsons?
I know we talk a lot about Jim Schwartz with the Eagles not looking at linebacker, but I mean, the reality is that that's more of a Howie Roseman thing than even just Jim Schwartz. I mean, you look at going back to, I think it's like 2005, the Eagles have only spent a second-round pick 2 times on a linebacker, much less spending a first-round pick on one. And so I think he's a good value. I do think moving to that cover 2 type of scheme, linebackers got to become more important. You're taking a guy out of the box, so you've got to still be able to stop the run without that +1 in the box. And you need that guy in the middle that can sort of drop it deeper into the hole. So I do think linebacker is more important in this scheme, and I think the Eagles have undervalued it for far too long.
Awesome. Let's roll on number 4, Mark.
All right, number 4. Can I interest you guys in a Heisman Trophy winner? Now, he might be a bit of an outlier, but Devonta Smith, the wide receiver from Alabama. I just put up, just done and dusted, my top 14 actually wide receivers for USA Today, which will probably go up tomorrow on Tuesday. We recorded this Monday night. He's in the mix along with Jalen Waddle, Jamar Chase, Rashad Bateman. That's sort of the big 4, how I stack these guys. And you can, in my mind, put them in any order. If you want Smith at 1, Smith at 2, Smith at 3, Smith at 4, whatever. He's an extremely talented wide receiver. Gets open. I know there will be questions about his frame, but he plays and punches well above 6'1", 175. I've seen him be tough at the catch point. I've seen him be tough against press coverage off the line. I've seen him be a willing and feisty blocker downfield when they ran screens and bubbles and tunnels behind him, using him as the lead blocker. I love the way he separates. He gives you, from day one, pretty much a complete route tree. He's not one of those receivers like a guy like Kadarius Toney, for example, or even a guy like DME Brown, who's going to run basically the Baylor route tree out of the game where it's goes, hitches, slants. No, Devonta Smith can run it all, and he's a full-body route runner. You see him use his head, his shoulders, the arms, his field of vision to sell defenders on one route and then cut away and break off of that. He can attack leverage really well. He works well in contested catch situations. Again, he plays above that 6'1", 175 or whatever he is. He will slide, I think. He will slide because these are risk-averse general managers and decision makers that look at the fact that the NFL graveyard is filled with guys who are 6'1", 175 and couldn't quite make it as wide receivers. I mean, Ted Ginn might be one of the best examples of that. And is Ted Ginn worth the 12th pick in the draft? Maybe not. But Smith is a complete wide receiver. He's much more than Ted Ginn. He's not just a burner. He can do it all. I think if he's there, he fits. The Eagles still have a need a wide receiver. I think I'm not giving up on Jalen Reagor yet, but some of the other guys, even the guys in the later rounds last year, if you get a chance to draft Smith, I think you jump at it. So if he's there, I'd make the pick.
Amen. I mean, not a bad consolation prize. He seems to be falling. It was Chase 1A, Smith 1B here at the start of the draft process, at least on my end. And now it seems like he's fallen a little bit. But if he's there at number 12, that's a no-brainer for the Eagles. What about you, Shane?
Yeah, and I put up a tweet today from PFF talking about it had broken down how much draft capital teams had spent on different positions in the last 10 years, and the Eagles were number 4 in the league in draft capital spent on receivers. and yet we haven't had a 1,000-yard receiver in 7 years. So, I mean, receivers absolutely in need. Like Mark said, Smith's a great route runner. I've got questions. I have concerns. And I do wonder, how he's an analytics guy. And I think he's going to have the film guys, the football guys telling him Devonta Smith can play. But he always seems to side with those analytics guys. So to be honest, I don't know. I think he'd be a good fit. I don't know if the Eagles are going to value him at 12, though. But I think if they get him, he'd be a great player for him. So
yeah, I mean, I think that's going to be the concern. And Shane, the way you set it up, the film guys versus the analytics guys. I think the debate with Smith and even with Parsons, in a sense, will play out along those lines. The film guys will be saying, "Look, this kid can play." Like with respect to Smith, he can run every route. He can make every catch. You look at the production. He was doing that with Jalen Waddle, with Najee Harris, like with talent around him, with John Mechie, who, by the way, kids, might be the best of these recent crops of Alabama receivers. Like I talk to people down in Alabama, and they're just telling me, look, Mechie might be the best we've had since Cooper. Like complete route runner, like full on tremendous talent. And there were times when I'm watching Waddle, I'm watching Mac Jones, I'm watching Harris, I'm watching Smith, and I'm like, man, who is? Oh yeah, that's Mechie. That's who it is. So I mean, we might get another like top 10 receiver next year from Alabama from Mechie, who might be the best of the bunch. But you look at the numbers that Smith put up, he's doing that with tremendous talent around him. I mean, that says something to me that, yeah, even with all these weapons, they're still targeting him in the pass game. And an interesting thing to keep in mind, when Jalen Waddle went down, Waddle was the guy that Sarkisian was using on the Jets and the end arounds and some designed plays. When Waddle went down, they slid Smith into that role. Now, that tells me something. That tells me that they designed ways to get Waddle the football and relied on Smith's ability to just do it. But when Waddle went down, they said, okay, well, we'll do it with Smith now. They trusted Smith, I think, a bit more to get open. The analytics people will say, look, it's an outlier, but I think you can make a safe bet given what you see on film.
He's going to make a lot of general managers look really dumb or really smart, just depending on how it works out.
Yeah,
totally. All right, number 3, Mark.
Number 3, we will shift back to the defensive side of the ball. I know secondary has been a need. Cornerback is a need, especially if you're shifted sort of this cover 2 scheme where you're going to need, coverage corners, press coverage corners, guys that can play down, near the line of scrimmage. So we're going to go corner next. Number 3 is J.C. Horn from South Carolina. I know a lot of people have Caleb Farley. I'm worried about the disc issue. I'm concerned about him. I love J.C. Horn. When I watch J.C. Horn, I see potentially, because I know it's a lofty comp, Jalen Ramsey 2.0. And part of the reason for that is you watch how they used J.C. Horn. You watch that game against Florida. He's covering Kyle Pitts, right? Your most dangerous tight end offensive weapon. He's matched on Kyle Pitts. Early in the game on the boundary, he's pressing him. He's riding him into the sideline. It takes a perfect throw to beat the coverage. He's hovered over him when he's in line next to the tackle. Pitts catches a touchdown on a slant route in the red zone against another defender. And it seemed like after that moment, South Carolina just said, wherever 84 goes, you go. That's your guy. So you're talking about somebody that can cover a 6'6", 245 tight end as a cornerback. A couple weeks later, they're playing Mississippi. Elijah Moore, 5'9", 180. Incredible three-cone, incredible change of direction skills. Blazing fast guy. Who's covered him? J.C. Horn, because that's the most dangerous guy. So they take J.C. Horn and put him on him. When you have a guy with that kind of profile that you can just say, look, this is the most dangerous guy, whether he's a 6'6" tight end or a 5'9" slot receiver, and this same player can cover both of those, that's a piece you want to have in your secondary. And so I think, yes, there are some things to iron out with Horn. He's a bit grabby. You might draw some flags and stuff, but he can certainly play press. He can certainly play, press and sink, as you sometimes see in cover 2, where you press and then sink and try to take away the vertical routes. He can give you that cover 4 stuff. He can give you man. He can give you some other zone things. I love him as a matchup piece. So I think J.C. Horn, if he's there and they go corner, that's a name to watch.
I love this pick. I absolutely love this pick. I think he plays with an aggressiveness that Eagles fans would just fall in love with immediately. And I do think I think they actually need more than one outside corner, probably at least 2 outside corners in this draft, probably high picks for the Eagles if they miss out on a top playmaker at wide receiver. Shane, you wrote a breakdown on J.C. Horn. What's up?
Yeah, so when I initially wrote my breakdown, I was far lower on Horn than consensus, which kind of scared me because, I mean, most of the time I'm pretty well on with the general consensus. And at the time, I was like, I don't know about this guy. So I've looked into him some more. I've read some more. I've definitely come up on him quite a bit. And I've still got a lot of concerns about him. But I think Horn is the type of player that has a lot of potential. I think he's the kind of guy that's likely going to struggle in the initial transition into the NFL, like a lot of guys do. And I think if he can carry through that and learn, the amount of physicality he can play with and some of those other skills, the Jalen Ramsey comp is spot on. And I hate to put that on a guy, kind of like I hate to put Hill on Jalen Waddle, but it's the same type of player. And, he hasn't played a lot of zone coverage, but he was used remarkably similarly at South Carolina to the way that the Detroit Lions use Darius Slay. Just go cover their number one. And so I don't know if you know, the Eagles have Darius Slay. So if you could stick that on both sides, that's going to open up a lot of things for them. So I think he has some bust potential if he can't get through the adjustment to, mirroring routes without being so grabby. But I do think he's got a lot of potential and could make a lot of sense for the Eagles at 12.
Yeah, and I think, with the presence of Slay, it will ease that transition where he doesn't have to be that guy right away. You could just say, look, you're going to be your cloud corner here. You usually play cover 2. You're going to be in the flat, press and sink if you need to. We'll get you up to speed. If we go man, you're covering option 2. You're not covering their top dog. We're going to let Darius do that. And I think it's an ideal situation. Some other environments, like, say the Jets that have an absolute glaring need in the secondary, or some other teams that really need a CB1 type of player, that could be more of a bust situation for him. But I think, look, in Philadelphia with the pieces that are already in place with Slay and others, like I think that might be a good environment for him, which is why I like the fit.
And people definitely love his aggressive style. He's got sweat. I said on the last podcast we did, he's Jalen Mills, but he's talented. The finger wag, the aggression, like he's got that alpha mentality, but he's just, he's a much more gifted player than Mills ever was. And he would be an exciting guy to watch do battle week in, week out.
Yeah, every time we write about him over a touchdown wire, we use the same lead header photo, which is him just like glaring down a receiver and John at him, because that's just who he is. And you need that as a cornerback. Like you need that alpha dog, like short memory span. You need that, and he's got it. That's a big box to check.
Love it. What's your number 2, dude?
Number 2, we stay at cornerback, and it's Patrick Surtain. You want to talk about an NFL-ready corner. It's hard to top a guy coming out of a Nick Saban system. Like you watch, whether it's Saban himself doing coverage clinics, whether it's, their secondary coach, Kyle Scott, doing coverage clinics when they're talking about Stubby and Stump and all their split safety coverages and all the different reads that corners have to make in that system. It's hard as a young, incoming true freshman to make a mark in that secondary because there's so much you have to do. He was an immediate contributor. And it's gotten better and better and better every year. He gives you the full and complete toolkit as a corner, press man, press bail man coverage, zone eyes. He can play off. Like he can do it all. Like he's as plug and play as it gets as at the cornerback position. Like, is he a super athlete? Like he's good enough. Does he have like the sort of mentality we were talking about J.C. Horn? Maybe not as flashy, maybe not as in your face, but I don't think you survive life as a corner in the SEC without that. Like you think of some of the receivers he's gone up against, some of the guys he's gone up against, like, Jamar Chase in that 2019 game where most of it was Chase versus Trayvon Diggs, but there were moments when, Surtain was up against him and he held his own, more than held his own. Nico Collins in a bowl game in 2019. Some other receivers in this class where he's more than held his own. And so, I think Surtain, if they go corner and he's there, I think he makes a ton of sense.
Love him. Absolutely love him. I like him over J.C. Horn. If he's there at number 12, bang. A+ pick for the Eagles. Plug and play, like you said. I love what he can do in man, zone, press coverage, everything. I know he might not have the higher ceiling of like a guy like Caleb Farley, who's got all the measurements and all that kind of stuff. But Shane, what is your thoughts on that pick?
Yeah, I think I think Surtain is a higher floor, lower ceiling player than J.C. Horn. He, out of all the corners, he's the most plug and play. He's the most pro ready. I think he makes a lot of sense for a team that has historically struggled to develop cornerbacks and has spent a lot of draft capital along the way on guys that didn't work out. So if you're looking at rebuilding a team and you need the sure thing, it's hard to beat a sure thing at a premium position that's a position of need. So I think he makes a lot of sense for the Eagles, assuming, he slides past the Cowboys at 9 or 10, whatever they're at. Are they 10?
Yeah, they're 10. And I think that's going to be the bigger question. And now look, Carolina at 8 could be corner as well. Now that they don't have to go quarterback, they could go corner at 8. So you might see, you might see Surtain at 8. You might see Horn at 10. And then maybe you're turning to your medical staff at 12 and saying, tell us about disectomies, because I'm worried about a corner with a back injury history. But if that checks out from a medical profile, then Caleb Farley might be the guy, or you go in a different direction and start thinking about, early round 2 corners, guys that might be in that mix there. But if Surtain's there, I just think it makes too much sense. It's plug and play. I absolutely love him. I love watching him. So, yeah.
The Eagles turning to their medical staff is what my nightmares are made of.
I think a lot of Eagles fans heard that and just felt that bile start to rise. Man, I hear you.
Totally. Marky Mark says, I think a top cornerback at 12 is what they wanted. Wide receiver, tight end, if they stayed at 6. I think that when we went live, when the trade went down from 6 to number 12, that was kind of at least my general consensus was they were targeting the secondary. And you look at the guys that would be potentially available. So, Mark, with that said, who is your number 1 target for the Eagles at number 12?
I mean, it's a receiver that I just love in this draft, and that's Jalen Waddle. Yes. And I know a lot of people, like I said, people stack these receivers, Chase at 1, Smith at 1. Some people told me Rashad Bateman's there 1. People have even gone outside the box, whether it's Kadarius Toney. Some people have said Kyle Pitts is wide receiver 1. For me, Chase is 1, then Waddle is 2. I absolutely love this kid's game. You can see his track background. He was a sprinter at Houston at Episcopal High School in the Houston area, ran the 100 and the 200. You can see the pace on his routes. He'll give you a second gear. You think you've got it covered, then he'll hit you with a third gear, and it just runs by you. He's got double moves. He's got vertical big play ability. There are games that become scouting lore amongst us in the media that do this, almost year round, it seems. 2019 Alabama LSU is certainly one. Jamar Chase versus Trayvon Diggs. Zach Wilson versus UCF. Justin Fields versus Clemson is one. Jalen Waddle against Missouri is up there as one of the most impressive games I watched from a wide receiver. Obviously, everybody will remember the catch, the post route, where he goes over the top, gets helicoptered, huge contact at the catch point downfield, but holds on to the football. But watch that red zone fade route out of the slot, where not only is the corner given about 6 yards of cushion, the safety's given about 8 yards of cushion, and he runs right by both of those guys just in a flash. I mean, double moves, vertical stuff. He's a weapon at all levels of the field, dangerous with the football in his hands, obviously has speed to burn. A lot of people have said, look, Tyreek Hill, they've used that comp. It's lofty, but I get it. I understand why people will go there with him. I think he's a tremendous talent at wide receiver. He's my wide receiver too. If you could trade out of 6 to 12, pick up a future first rounder and still get wide receiver 2, I think that's a pretty big thing to get. And I would love him. I would love him in any offense. But I think Philadelphia, that'd be fantastic. And look, I'm a Patriots fan. If he slides to 15, I will jump up and down if they draft him. So, yeah, Jalen Waddle is my number 1 here.
Well said, man. 100% agree. Jalen Waddle is the Eagles' target. In fact, I would trade up 8, 9 just to ensure to get him, no matter what the cost. He's that playmaker that the Eagles need, and I love that potential with him and Jalen Reagor. Just causing havoc, whether it's in the backfield or down on the sidelines, just everywhere. Just speed kills, man. What about you, Shane?
Yeah, he's my wide receiver 1. With all 3 receivers and Pitts on the board, I would take Waddle, and I wouldn't really think that hard about it. When I did my scouting report write-up for him, I tweeted out that he would instantly be the best receiver the Eagles have had since Terrell Owens. And somebody questioned, like, what about Desean Jackson? And I replied, and I was like, that's the tweet. Like, I think I'm that high on him. I mean, he's a guy, you can take the top off the defenses on one play, open things up for your tight end, your running back underneath. The next part of the play, he can work the intermediate parts of the field. He's not just a deep threat. He's not just a manufactured touch guy, but wherever he went, he commanded safety help. And so you get safeties locked in on him, and all of a sudden you can have Jalen Reagor running free. You can get him the ball on jet sweep, screens. You can use him on kick returns if you want to. Like, I'm very, very high on Waddle. If you're not going quarterback at 6, Waddle would have been my guy. So to get him at 12, I would be thrilled.
Yeah.
And I forgot to mention, he's got some chemistry with a guy named Jalen Hurts. I hear he caught a few touchdowns from him back in the day. So,
yeah. And I think, to your point, Shane, about his routes, his best route might be the dig or the over route, where he's working over the middle of the field at the intermediate level. That's when you really see that sort of pace to his route running. Like, there was one, he's had a couple of them. I actually did a video on it, but he had one against Texas A&M where you could literally see the safety he's working against. When Waddle kicks into that second gear, as he starts to get into and out of his break, he's thinking, all right, I get this route matched. I can run with this guy. Then Waddle hits into that third gear and just runs away from this kid. And this safety's like, I just dumbfounded. He had no idea that he had that extra gear, but he has that. Double moves, in and ups, getting over the top of the defense. I think he's a home run hitter. On everything from hitches to goes, he could take the distance. Yeah, I would absolutely love him in New England, but if I'm Philadelphia and he's there at 12, I'm running to the podium.
Amen.
And I mean, people want to throw out injury concerns with him because he had the ankle injury, but like, there's a difference in an injury and being injury prone. I mean,
right.
And it's like, well, he's fast and he got hurt, so he's got to be injury prone. He's Desean Jackson. I mean, that's not the case. This is a guy, he outweighs Devonta Smith. Everybody that wants to talk about Waddle's being injury prone, they're like, Devonta Smith. Like, well, he outweighs Devonta Smith and he ran a 4.2 40. So, I mean, What are we talking about here? Now, and he's got room to grow as a route runner. He's not the route runner that Smith is, but he had tremendous growth from 2019 to 2020 in his route running. And so I would love the pick.
Yep. Marky Mark says, agree. Waddle has Tyreek Hill traits in him, bubble screens, jet sweeps, get him in space. Wouldn't that be nice to have a play caller get our guys in space this season?
And what's more helpful for a young quarterback you're trying to develop than a guy that you can just get the football to bubbles and screens and jets, design, check downs, quick throws to the flat, and let him work after the catch. I mean, it's like ideal. If you can't get a Kyle Pitts or somebody like that, Jalen Waddle would be one heck of a way to help Hurts.
Amen.
Well, and Oh, go ahead. I was going to say, I've talked about before that, Hurts doesn't like to throw middle of the field. He's not a huge fan of throwing into tight windows. What's a better thing to get him than a guy that's probably one of the best separators in the class? Yeah. I mean, you can go the jump ball route with Pitts or with Chase, and that's going to be helpful too. But that guy that he knows he can always bounce to, that's going to be wide open. Like, that's a huge help for a quarterback that sometimes doesn't quite trust his eyes at the first look. But if that first look's wide open, it's easy throw.
Exactly.
All right, Mark, we are so honored for you to come on a Party on Broad for the second time, man. What do you got going on? Where can we find you, bro?
Well, like I said, guys, this was a blast. Thanks for having me back. It's always good when you get invited back. Like, the initial invite is nice, but when you get invited back, it shows you that you did your job the first time. So it's good to see. Like I said, we're working through top 11 at each position. Doug Farrar, myself, at Touchdown Wire. You'll get top 11 wide receivers from me on Tuesday. Jalen Waddle is too, like we just discussed. Later on, you're going to get edges from me. You're going to get corners and linebackers as well. That will be into next week. But the best way to follow along is on the Bird app at Mark Schofield.
Awesome. I just want to say thank you, everyone here, for watching. Please be sure to smash that like button, comment, turn on notifications, subscribe, all that fun stuff. For Mark, for Shane, for myself. See you next time, guys. Stay awesome.
Sixers win it! Wow!
Oh, man, Embiid just posterized Russell Westbrook. You love the Philadelphia Eagles!